even that elbow knee escape, there's a big difference between me going here and then trying to execute the move quickly, or me, and again, when I want to extend my arm, I go thumb down, right? Just, this is the full extension of my arm until I rotate my thumb. Then I get that extra couple inches, right? So I'm here, and then you go here. There's a big difference between me executing that movement from here and me executing the movement from here, right? And that's everywhere in jiu-jitsu. Make sense? All right, now, once you have that power shrimp figured out, it's going to be very hard to keep you pinned if the other person doesn't have some key details. So let's test this theory out. Go ahead and get on top of your partner. Take that position. Make sure your tricep is up against the neck. Your bicep is up against the hip. Your sternum is over their sternum. You relax your upper body. Connect your chin to your shoulder. Take your knees off the mat. Hug, take your elbows off the mat. And now I want the person on bottom to do the same thing, only instead of just trying to lift your shoulder off the mat, try and do it the way I just taught you with that power shrimp. And turn towards your partner. Go. Good. Good. All right, good. Switch it over. Same thing. Dial in the position. Give them all your weight. Work that power shrimp. Good. Good. All right, good. Look here. Make success with that, but that's fine. So when we did that earlier, almost none of you were able to get on your side at all, and now some of you are getting on your side, and if we dialed that in a little more, you would be able to get on your, pretty much everybody here should be able to get on their side, right? But just like we pushed the shoulder into the hands, wherever your frame is in that particular case, usually it's going to be the inside arm, and it's this part, right? We don't want to frame with our hands and our wrists, but this part of your arm. Then you would connect that part of your arm into wherever you have contact with their body, which is usually their hip or just a little lower on the thigh. You would push that in there before you execute the motion. And that makes the same difference as it does when you push your shoulder into their hands, okay? So we're connecting to them with our frame, and then you step out, and from the ground, you make that kinetic wave with your whole body. You can move a lot of weight, and you'll be able to get on your side, right? The problem is they can just flatten you back out with the legs, which is what we're going to do now. But I also want to show you one thing that's just a difference there. Come here, Matt. I'm going to do everything I just did, which is correct, but with one minor change. So watch here. Sternum to sternum, hand here, here, a gentle hug. Notice the position of my head, right? In relationship to Matt's body, it's basically by his inner elbow or his bicep, right? Now, using it the way I just showed you, Matt, try and get on your side. Good. He's able to get on his side. The sweaty Matt's not helpful either, but he can do it, right? Now I'm going to do the exact same thing, but I want to make a change with my upper body and where I'm focusing my weight. And now I'm going to ask him to do the same thing. And he can feel he's not going to get his shoulder off at all, okay? The difference is I'm focused my weight now on the line of the shoulders. And there's a lot of different references you can use. I like to see my chin go above his shoulder. But what's really important is that my spine is lined up with this line right here. And when I'm controlling this line right here, I can control him and keep him flat, keep him from turning either way. So when I'm passing, or when you're passing, you are going to use that sternum to sternum reference. And you do want your weight kind of center mass, right? But then I make it just a little shift here. And I'm making sure my spine, I'm not too far off the sternum, I'm just on the upper part of it. But my spine is more lined up with Matt's shoulders. Not just here, but it's also not like this or like this. It's here. And in this hug I'm making with my arm, I'm able to focus my weight center mass on his top shoulder. Right? Now, I'm going to get that shoulder off the mat. And it's going to be very difficult for them. Okay? Go ahead and try it back and forth. Focus on the line of the shoulders. If you need help, raise your hand, I'll come help you. Tricep up against the neck, bicep in the hip. Maximum surface area, palms turned towards you. Sternum over there, sternum, chin to your shoulder. Okay, take your knees off the mat. Take your elbows off the mat. But I want you to focus your weight over their sternum. Okay? Not on the shoulders, but over their sternum. And to have them get on their side now as best they can. Good. Now go back and shift where you're focusing your weight to that top shoulder. And line up your spine with the line of those shoulders. And now focus your weight there. Now have them try and get on their side. Focus on those shoulders. Yes. Good. Now switch. Have your partner do the same thing. I found working this material at my own gym in Portland with my students over the last year or so that if I just have them focus on the line of the shoulders when they're holding cross-side stop, it makes a big difference on how well you can keep that person pinned. And the more we can keep them pinned and the heavier we are, the more likely they're going to be to make a mistake, which is ultimately going to give us submission. So, questions? Feel better? It's a little awkward at first and a little more energy at first than having your knees on the mat, but that will change very quickly. And you can move quicker too, obviously, when your knees are off the mat and you're on your toes. The transitions and everything is going to become better for you. So all we really need to talk about now is just very briefly killing the frame. So when Matt's on bottom, very important here, especially when you're using your weight correctly, the way we are now, that the person on bottom does not try and use their hand. If he uses his hand and I go a little too fast, I can really hurt him on accident or not on accident. So when I'm here, if Matt takes that right hand and he starts to push in my hip, and all of a sudden then I'm going to do this very slow, but I just drop my weight down this way, not only does it kill the frame, but it can really hurt your arm. So he wants to be framing with this part, okay? My reaction is going to be the same. I'm going to stay relaxed, but then I just drop my weight down into that frame. If I feel him go with a reverse underhook into my other hip, for now I'm just going to sag and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to drop my weight there, try and lift with it. So I'm still focused on the shoulder, put my weights down here. Nice and relaxed. Back and forth, and then we can move on. Go ahead. Put your body weight onto their frame and just let the frame collapse. Just feel it collapsing in the beginning. Right? We can always speed it up. So now, let's go back and do the exact same thing we started class with 50 minutes ago. So I want the person on bottom to try and escape. I want the person on top to use this hand position exactly like you just did. But now your goal on top is to make sure you keep your weight on them the entire round. So I don't want your knees or your butt or your elbows touching the mat if possible. Try and keep everything off the mat. Try and keep them flat and keep your weight on their body. Okay? And if they escape or you fall off, good. Right? That's part of the process. Failure is an important part of the process. Go back, think about what happened, dial it in, and try and make it better so you make a different mistake next time, because our goal is to try and find as many mistakes as quickly as possible. Got it? I'll tell you when to switch. Get on top. Go ahead. If your partner's escaping and getting on their side, it's always going to be something I've already mentioned, right? And then we have to dial that back in and go back. So are your hands in the right place? Is your weight in the right place? There's not going to be any new technique I'm going to show Matt here in the next 5 seconds. It's all of a sudden going to make it so he can't get on his side more. But we can continue to dial in the pressure. Make sure you focus on this top shoulder mat with your body weight. Keep your knees bent and lift your hips a little higher than your shoulders. One thing you can do to make yourself heavier and also to keep the person, make it harder for the person to turn towards you, is to always make sure your hips just get a little bit higher. Okay? Go ahead and go again. Good. So now he's got it dialed in. Right? So it's just piece by piece. Go back. Work it. So that's a good problem to have. That's what we want to do. Other question here. Someone. Yeah.
I was going to ask, do you have like an adjustment to supplement in the elbow pushes get?
Say one more time.
You know that.
I'm going deaf, and you guys all have accents. It's a terrible situation.
So if I managed to get right here.
Yeah.
No, I had to sort of bump up.
Yeah.
What was it?
Yeah. So yeah, that escape can work there for sure. One of the things, go ahead and lay down for me, Matt, that we're due to try and minimize that escape from happening is make sure my tricep is up against that neck and that I'm connected here, so it's very difficult for him to even get his hand in the right spot to be able to push my body down towards his feet. right? Once that slips a little bit, my elbow gets here. Now I'm in trouble. Now I have to counter. Right, and as he's moving around, you're going to lose contact. That's why what I really want to urge you guys to do is just slow it. I mean, you can be, when I say be competitive, I mean you're not letting your partner escape. You're not letting your partner hold you, but it doesn't mean I want you to go real fast and, you know, sloppy. You can slow everything down, close your eyes, and make sure you can feel, so I'm losing contact with his neck while he moves his hips this way or that way, and you can track him and just get a little bit tighter each time. Make sense? Yeah. No, it's repetitive when I repeat the same details over and over again when you get on top. But if you get on top and you miss one of those details, that's probably why the person's going to escape. That's why we always go back and just keep, the fundamentals are never going to be good enough. We always have to keep going back and working them. Anything else? All right, yeah.
I found that Martin, if you shot the
Reverse underhook.
Yeah. Also move his feet simultaneously.
Yeah.
So you kind of took my angle and my line off the shoulders, and
yes.
a little bit too hard.
Yes, good. So we're going to talk about that. Countering these underhooks. But first, let's go into a proper underhook. And the reason why I like going with the weight this way first is because it forces you on bottom to have to do the correct underhook. If you do the underhook incorrectly, it just won't work at all. What's an incorrect underhook? An incorrect underhook is palm towards the ceiling or grabbing their back. Okay, so if Matt's on top of me, and underhook is actually it's not even a good name for this. I understand why it's called an underhook, because we're in the same position as we are in a clinch for an underhook. But if I go like this, right, my palms towards me, even if I'm very strong and heavier than Matt, as I go this way and I wind up, his weight just kind of slides further down onto me. This becomes like a shelf. Worse, if I grab or do something like this, then in the heat of a roll, when we're both going competitively, you actually wind up keeping the person onto you, holding them onto you, wind up hugging them, okay? So instead of calling this an underhook, it's a much better description for it is a shoulder escape. What's keeping me from turning towards Matt is his pinning of my top shoulder. I have to make my top shoulder free, and so that's what this underhook's about, okay? And what I'm going to do ultimately, everybody go like this. Yeah. So when we shoot for an underhook, it's like this. It's a dive. I don't want you to think that you're going to be going like this and shucking their body up here by your head. It's not going to work. And the only time I'm even going to go that direction is if all of a sudden maybe I feel him go for a head and arm, right? But even then I'm not going to do it this way. It's going to be more of a dive like this. Okay. So your hand is rotating thumb down and you're going down towards the mat, not up into his weight. And this is the big thing I've noticed people are struggling with, is they'll do the underhook and they'll even get the hand position correct, but they're doing this, right? And as I lift my arm, I'm lifting into his weight, making it harder for myself. I'm not trying to move Matt, whoever's on top at all. I'm just trying to free my shoulder. So my hand's going down towards the mat, down towards the mat, down towards the mat. So I'll start with the underhook. He's going to give me the underhook first. I'll show you how we'll get there in a second. But all that means is my tricep, my bicep, my elbow, I should say, my elbow is past his bicep and tricep, okay? Once it's here, now I can work the escape. Actually, let's spin around, Matt, so they can see better here. So you see my elbow is past there, right? Now, anything I do where I lift my hand up this way, it's just gonna make it heavier. So instead, I'm just gonna go ahead and lay your weight on my hand. Yeah, that just makes it harder. So I'm just trying to free my shoulder. So I'm gonna move my hips back and just push, drive my hand down towards the ground like this. And now I'm free, right? If Matt doesn't move, if he keeps this line, try and flatten me out. There's just no way he's going to flatten me out. I can lift my feet off the ground and stay in this position if he tries to flatten me out, okay? So all I'm trying to do, give me weight again, is to free that top shoulder. And I do it by moving my hips back as I drive my thumb down like that. Once I'm here, I'm out, okay? So a good way to do this last part is just have your partner start on top and have them put both arms on the far side of the body. Yeah, so it'll be easier for you. Relax your right hand. If you start to push or grab with this hand, you're actually, again, you're helping to keep your shoulders flat. You're actually doing him a favor. So I just want to relax this for now. Don't even worry about it. Your tricep is past, your elbow's past his tricep. As my hips move back, my thumb goes down. Good. So in the air, it's just like this. It's not, no, in the air, Matt. Yeah, it's not this, because that's hard, moving my weight into his body. It's this. Your body kind of acts like a corkscrew, and as my hips go back, I drive my hand down. Simple enough, right? Just focus and try and make sure that part's perfect. Go ahead, back and forth. Half of you are doing this. Okay, Casey, can I have you on bottom? Take top, Glenn. Have Casey do it correctly once. That's very good. Go back. Now, I'll have him go about halfway and then freeze. I'll tell you when to stop. Stop. So if you're in a position like this, and your arm is going this way, just relax your arm, and it's lifting this way into Glenn's weight at all, that's not helpful, right? I know that feels like what you're supposed to do, so this becomes a hard habit to break, but he just wants to free his shoulder. He's not trying to move Glenn. He's just trying to get this shoulder free, so he just wants it to go down towards the ground. Yes. And you'll feel it, like it's gonna be here, 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 and then you feel where you slip past, and then you know you're out. The person's not gonna be able to hold you with their weight there. They're gonna have to use different grips. Make sense? Keep going. This is gonna be our finished position, so just basic iron pillow. I don't want you guys to stop there. I'm not gonna run the class where you stop there. Once we start drilling, I think it's really important that you always, you know, if you're practicing sweeps, you always get on top. If you're practicing turnovers, I want you to finish. I want you to get the connection before you stop. So I'm not gonna have you stop here once we drill, but for now, this is just where you're gonna be for a moment in time. So when you go to quarters, you have to get this arm out of the way. So you only really have a couple options. One is to go over your head, and two is to come under your body. Okay, they're both viable, but for the one I was teaching, I just went straight like this. Pressing my face into my bicep, trying to make it as hard as possible for them to get a cross face or mess with my gi. My hands are like this. Sit to your knees, Glenn. And you should wind up, just sit up, framing his knees like this. So this should be your position. You're gonna have an angle about like this in relationship to their body weight, and you're gonna be right about here. Okay, and that's where I want you to go. Got it? Just a couple times. Go ahead, back and forth, and we'll build on that. Test the iron pillow just for a second. Make sure you're in a nice solid position. I just want to check and make sure, first of all, I'm going to be like this. Make sure I can't flatten Matt out if I'm driving. Yeah, so he's got a good position. Check the underhook's tight. As I start to dig, just close off that space. Yep. See if you can cross face. No. Good. And then we're going to switch, okay? Now let's talk about getting the underhook. Getting the underhook is the hard part. Once your elbow kind of slips past their arm, once you feel comfortable moving your hand down and you know that you need to move your butt back, you're not trying to drive into them for this move right now, you can use a power shrimp to help you create space in the beginning to help move your butt back, but really it's this motion of moving your hips back to create the angle that allows you to dig. So once you get all that, the hard part's actually getting your hand in there, okay? So a simple way to do it, I'm just gonna bump. So Matt has that classic hand position. I don't want my arm up here where it's gonna be too vulnerable. In the beginning, I'm just gonna put it here. Go ahead and lay your weight on me. And I'm gonna make sure it's pressed up against his body, okay? So obviously if he lifts up and lets me get it in there, I'll put it in there. But otherwise, I'm just gonna get as close as I can. My arm's hugged, so he can't just go for an underhook. If he goes for an underhook, yeah, I'm nice and tight there. And then I'm gonna bump. Lift up for a sec. And that's every time we move our hips up in the air when we're flat on our back, you wanna do what Glenn talked about earlier and tuck your tailbone. Not only does that make everything more powerful and more efficient, it also helps save your back. So it helps you from getting hurt, right? Because a lot of people, especially if you're lifting some weight, you can get hurt when you do shrimps like this or bumps like this. Tuck that tailbone, engages your core, and you'll be a lot healthier. A bump is just what it sounds like. I'm just gonna lift my hips up and down real quick, as many times as I need to, until my elbow gets past his tricep. So he's on top, put my hand here. That's it. Now once my hand's here, then it's just a question of moving my hips back and driving there to finish with the underhook. Back and forth, go ahead. Make sure your hands are in the right spot, heads down, giving them weight. Now I don't want you to counter by moving your hands and going through all that stuff right now, counter for counter. We just want to teach the person to dig. So give them dead body weight. Just relax your upper body. Now on top, make sure your arm is as close as possible and then bump until your hand scoots past their tricep. Your elbow scoots past the tricep. It might take multiple times to do it. Now make sure your palm's not up but thumb down and that you're not lifting into them but you're driving down. Now move your butt back. Very good. Do it 2 or 3 more times and then switch and do the same thing for your training partner. Give them good dead weight. Don't lift up for them. Make them have to get it in there.